So Tucker Carlson did an interview with Alex Jones on his Twitter show, and it was one of the most embarrassing things I've ever seen. I mean, he really slobs on that knob for an hour and 31 minutes straight. He is just slurping that D like nobody's business. So I'm going to show you the intro just so you get a little taste of like what the interview was like, but I'm not kidding when I say I don't think there was even one example of an area of pushback or disagreement. He didn't present him like, hey man, yeah, you say a lot of things, I agree with some of them, I disagree with other things. He would like say that, but then only highlight the things where, oh, you were a prophet, Alex, you're so right about everything, Alex. And look, I don't like to use this this allegation often, but I think in this case, if the shoe fits, you got to wear it. It is what it is. Tucker's just grifting. Like, I think he's just trying to get that particular conspiracy-minded audience to get tuned into his show and to care a lot about his show. And this is like another good example. This is how Tucker talked about Trump behind the scenes versus when he was in front of the camera. Behind the scenes, we saw the internal emails. We saw the text messages that came out in the defamation lawsuit that Fox News was undergoing. And, he was saying, I hate this guy with a burning passion. I despise him. Literally nothing good has come out of the Trump era. He needs to go away, and he needs to go away ASAP. And then in front of the camera, he's one of the chief Trump ball coddlers. So, look, it's like ironclad proof of like, you are just finger in the wind, trying to go where you think the audience wants you to go to maintain relevance. And that I have absolutely no respect for. I have much more respect for somebody who I disagree with on 100% of things, but is principled, than I do for somebody who's just, where's the audience? I got to go where the audience wants me to go. Okay. So here, I'll just give you a little taste of what it's like. We'll listen to the intro and, just prepare yourself.
We have a ruling class in the United States defined by its hatreds, not its loves, not its hopes, but by its hatreds. They hate all kinds of people, large groups of people, the deplorables, the bitter clingers, America's entire blue-collar population, the unfashionable people.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Yeah, everybody on the left hates the blue-collar population. It's not like their entire politics are based around trying to give these people more power and more money. Okay, by the way, I'm just pausing here to point out that later on in this interview, Tucker asked Alex Jones about, like, what do you think of liberals? And Alex Jones goes off on a 3-minute rant of, like, they're the most useless people you could ever imagine. They're stupid. They're dumb. They don't know how to do anything. They're wrong about everything. And so he's like, oh, we have elites that hate people. And then later on in the interview, they're like, yes, let's hate people. Let's hate the other side politically.
But no one is hated more by them than a man called Alex Jones. Alex Jones is the single most censored man in all American history. He was the first media figure in our history to be completely erased in one day, deplatformed. Alex Jones was deplatformed before it was a common term. And not just deplatformed, sued, attacked. They attempted to criminally charge him. What did Alex Jones do wrong? Alex Jones didn't rape anybody. He didn't loot Macy's. He didn't burn a police station. He didn't invent a fake cryptocurrency and loot pension funds. He didn't start a pointless war that made this country poorer and more disorganized. He didn't open the southern border. No, Alex Jones had opinions that deeply rattled the people who run America.
He's playing way too loose there. So what actually happened with the Alex Jones case? And we covered this maybe closer than anybody in the media, so I can speak on this with some degree of authority. So he was brought to trial by the Sandy Hook victims' family members because Alex, for years after Sandy Hook, was on a crusade basically saying Sandy Hook is a false flag attack and the kids aren't even real. The people who are their quote-unquote parents are actually crisis actors. And this led to Alex's audience in a very aggressive and direct way, harassing the family members of the victims. It got so bad that one of the people had to move a number of times in order to try to feel safe. There was another one who ended up committing suicide as a direct reaction to being harassed relentlessly about their kid that had died, that they were being told you didn't even have a kid. So some of the parents got together. Is actually our buddy who we had on Crystal Kyle and Friends, Mark Bankston, was the lawyer. He did a phenomenal job in the case. And they basically said, look, I had no beef with the guy. I didn't even know who the guy was, but he made my life a living hell, and there was direct harassment as a result of Alex Jones' show. By the way, one of Alex Jones' co-hosts even went as far as to basically dox some of these people. I actually didn't know that until watching the case and like deeper in, because I used to say, well, he never doxed anybody, so I don't know if there's criminal repercussions or whatever. No, one of his co-hosts on InfoWars actually doxed some of the people. And so the harassment was incredibly severe. It was over the top. Now, by the way, this is an interesting fact. He didn't actually lose the case on the merits. He lost the case what's called by default. Why? Because he refused to comply with the court orders for discovery. He refused to turn over the documents that he was legally required to turn over. So he was found guilty by default. And then what you saw, like the recording of the trial, was actually just the sentencing phase of the trial. And so now Alex goes around saying, I was found guilty. They didn't even give me a fair trial. It wasn't even just. It wasn't even legit. I couldn't even make a defense for myself. And that's a lie, because he knows that when he was in the courtroom, it was actually just the sentencing phase of the trial. It wasn't even the preliminary time where they were determining whether or not he was guilty. He was already found guilty by default. So it was just the sentencing phase. So anyway, yeah, he had to pay a tremendous amount of money because of that. It was a civil case, and the decision was the decision. It's not criminal. It is civil, and the decision was the decision. But notice, he doesn't tell you this. He doesn't tell you this. Oh, he had unpopular opinions. No, it wasn't just unpopular opinions. It was as a direct result of his show and a direct result of a theme he harped away on. There was direct harassment and violence targeted at the family members of the victims of Sandy Hook. Now, look, you could look at all the facts and still have a dissenting opinion and say, oh, I don't think it was fair what happened to Alex Jones. That's fine. But Tucker's not even engaging on the facts of the case.
And I'll just confess that I first heard of Alex Jones when he questioned the official story behind 9/11. And I, speaking for myself, was deeply offended by this. I didn't take any time to find out what he was saying, but I was bothered by the idea that this defining event in American history, which changed the life of everyone who lived here then, might not actually have unfolded as we were told it did. And that possibility was too destabilizing. And I remember feeling resentment toward Alex Jones for saying that. But several years later, I wound up in Austin, Texas, and through a chain of circumstances, wound up meeting Alex Jones. And I learned what everyone who has met him now knows, which is Alex Jones is not a crazy person. Alex Jones has said pretty far out things on TV from time to time. Not that far out. He hasn't said men can become women or Ukraine is a democracy, but within the bounds of, say, cable news, pretty far out. But fundamentally, Alex Jones is right about a lot of things. And in fact, that's why they don't like him. Alex Jones has an uncanny, really an amazing ability to predict events before they happen. He has called it, and he's done it on tape again and again, to the point where it's a meme on the internet. Alex Jones, prophet. Not conspiracy nut, prophet.
Now the BJ is getting real sloppy, isn't it? Now it's getting real sloppy. And this is the theme that runs through the whole thing. Let's talk about all the areas where you're right, Alex. Let's do that. So, totally pathetic. Like, it could have been an interesting conversation if they actually like debated areas where they disagreed. Look, it would be fun, even if he agreed with him for half the podcast, but the other half the podcast, he's like, hey, let's have a back and forth on this one, because you got this one wrong and I disagree with you. That would have been interesting. He doesn't do that. He doesn't do that. Go watch the whole thing. So, look, I'm going to just give you one example here. There's so many times throughout it where Tucker's like, well, actually, I agree with everything you said. Okay, thanks, Tucker. So here's one part that blew up on Twitter.
That is taking the world over, that owns the majority of Hollywood, that's paid off the Democratic Party. And if you look at all these anti-white shows that you see funded in Hollywood, almost all of it has majority literal communist Chinese government backing that is funding this. So it's real simple. China looks in and sees this diverse culture, and they say, we're going to use that to split the country up and balkanize it. And that's what they've done.
So does some classic China red baiting there. Oh my God, China's secretly taken over Hollywood and the government and Wall Street and all this thing. And Tucker, who fancies himself anti-neocon, sits there. Oh, yes. Yes. So in other words, being a war hawk vis-a-vis Ukraine, unacceptable. Neocons, but fear-mongering around China, oh, no, totally, I agree with that. Okay, so now, remember, guys, and again, this didn't come up at all in the conversation. Why? How was Alex Jones so immensely wrong to the point where people got harassed and he was sued over it? Well, this is what the stuff he said on the issue.
Sandy Hook, it's got inside job written all over it. Sandy Hook is a synthetic, completely fake, with actors, in my view, manufactured. I couldn't believe it at first. People just instinctively know that there's a lot of fraud going on. But it took me about a year with Sandy Hook to come to grips with the fact that the whole thing was fake. I mean, even I couldn't believe it. I knew they jumped on it, used the crisis, hyped it up, but then I did deep research, and my gosh, it just pretty much didn't happen. I mean, I've interviewed the cops and the people that saw the feds plant the bombs in Oklahoma City. You saw them stage Fast and Furious. Folks, they staged Aurora. They staged Sandy Hook. The evidence is just overwhelming. The Newtown kids, oh, they take them, put them in our face, tell us their names, who they were. I heard an ad this morning on the radio, Bloomberg paid for locally, going, I dropped Billy off and watched him go around the corner, and he never came back, all because of the guns. Won't you just turn your guns in for my son? Why'd you do it to him, gun owners? Well, listen, I didn't kill your kids. The truth is they've had national polls where upwards of half of Americans don't believe Sandy Hook because they don't believe a word the mainstream media says. We've sent reporters up there, man, and that place is like Children of the Corn or something. I mean, it is frickin' weird. And then the weird videos of reported parents of kids laughing, and all of a sudden they do the hyperventilating to cry to go on TV. All I know is something's going on. And you don't like us looking at it. You don't like us questioning you. The father needs to clarify, that NBC needs to clarify. Because the coroner said none of the parents were allowed to touch the kids or see the kids. And maybe they, meaning at the school, I'm sure later maybe the parents saw their children.
Basically what he said, the statement he made, fact checkers on this have said cannot be accurate. He's claiming that he held his son and saw the bullet hole in his head. That is his claim. Now, according to a timeline of events and a coroner's testimony, that is not possible.
Could be that, we need to get clarification. I went on, I could never find out. The stuff I found was they never let them see their bodies. That's kind of what's weird about this, but maybe they did. So I'm sure it's all real.
This goes on. I'm not even halfway through, but I'll stop it here. You guys get the gist of it. And look, if this is not enough for you to go, hey, maybe it could have been a point of contention where they debated or they disagreed or whatever. Because now, by the way, Alex Jones denies he even said the things that we have him on videotape saying. Oh, I never said it was fake. Really? I have a 7-minute and 13-second video here, compilation of you back to back saying it's totally synthetic, it's fake, it's made up, it didn't happen. But by the way, he's done this after almost every mass shooting. There are times where there's been a mass shooting and he comes out, I'm not kidding about this, the same day to say, oh, this is false flag. This didn't actually happen. And by the way, his theory is the government stages these things. Why? Because they want to come and take your guns. And he said, Obama's got a devious plan. He's going to take all the guns. Guys, Obama was in office for 8 years. We saw the strongest legislation he proposed when it comes to guns. At no point was he trying to, quote unquote, take the guns. Yeah, there was talk about, hey, let's limit the high capacity magazines. Let's do universal background checks. Let's ban only assault weapons, which still leaves the rifles and the shotguns and the handguns and all that stuff. That was the furthest he ever even tried to go. And by the way, he got bupkis of that through. None of it through. Didn't get any gun reform through. And it was never the case that Alex Jones comes out and goes, oh, you know what? Sorry, I was wrong on that one. Turns out he didn't try to take the guns. Not at all. Even in his wildest dreams with his most wide-reaching proposal, even then he wasn't, quote-unquote, taking the guns. So wrong, over, wrong, over and over and over. So by the way, in this interview with Tucker, here's some of the gems that they leave us. Alex Jones says Biden wanders around naked in the White House. I'd love to know what sources Alex Jones has from within the White House. Is there anybody who's on Biden's staff who's like, oh, actually, I'm a big Alex Jones fan. He says Trump and Biden will be assassinated. He talks about Hamas and Hezbollah sleeper cells that we know are in the country that are going to do an attack. Again, he also just shows he has no knowledge of international politics. Because Hamas and Hezbollah are not jihadist organizations. You can call them terrorist organizations, but they're not jihadist organizations. It's not global caliphate ambitions. That's Al-Qaeda. That's ISIS. That is not the same thing as Hamas or Hezbollah. Hezbollah is a militant group in Lebanon, and it's Shia. It's not Sunni. By definition, it's not. They don't do jihad. All the jihadists in today's day and age are Sunni fundamentalists. They're Salafists. They're Wahhabists. And Hamas, of course, their main goal, yes, they're Islamic fundamentalists, but their main goal is a Palestinian state. They have state ambitions. It's not global caliphate ambitions. You guys have heard me go through this rant before. They go on to tell a story about Brian Stelter, how Tucker and Alex Jones were drinking the night before. They were having like whiskey or something. And at one point, they were like, let's call Brian Stelter. And so I think Tucker dials him up or whatever. And Tucker gets Brian Stelter to talk to Alex Jones. And it gets weirdly homoerotic where they were like, this is what they say. This is what they say. Like, oh, it sounded like he was into it, bro. Was he into? Oh, yeah, he was into it. It sounded like he wanted me or something, bro. Go watch the whole thing. You'll see. And then he also goes on to bring up, for example, Agenda 21. He goes, yeah, I predicted that, right? I said Agenda 21 would be implemented. Agenda 21 was like circa 2013, 2014. It was the right-wing conspiracy where they said they're going to ban all cars. You're going to be forced to live in a little hobbit home. They had all these absurd notions. None of those things came true. And here he's doing a victory lap. Like he got it right. Zero pushback. Zero pushback from Tucker Carlson. I got more for you. Again, even if half the podcast was him saying, hey, you got this thing right, you got that thing right, that's interesting, talk to me about that, but hey, here are all the areas where I disagree with you. That'd be fine. I probably wouldn't even be covering it if that was the case. But it was nothing but a sloppy-ass BJ the entire time. Stuff like this didn't come up. Here's Alex Jones saying that Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama are like literal demons.
If something horrible comes out and Trump comes out and agrees he did it, I will then weigh it. But I'm never a lesser of two evils person, but with Hillary, there's not even the same universe. I mean, she is an abject, psychopathic demon from hell that as soon as she gets into power is going to try to destroy the planet. I'm sure of that, and people around her say she's so dark now and so evil and so possessed that they are having nightmares, they're freaking out. Folks, let me just tell you something, and if the media wants to go with this, that's fine. There are dozens of videos and photos of Obama having flies land on him indoors at all times of year, and he'll be next to 100 people and no one has flies on him. Hillary, reportedly, I mean, I was told people around her that they think she's demon-possessed, okay? I'm just going to go ahead and say it, okay? They said they're scared. That's why when I see her, when kids are by her, I actually get scared myself for the child. I mean, that big rubber face and that... I mean, this woman is dangerous, ladies and gentlemen. I'm telling you.
Weird that none of this came up. Now, look, I get it if you don't like Hillary Clinton. I hate Hillary Clinton. Her politics are horrible. But she's not fucking demon-possessed. And he's saying that literally. So, as all this, you go watch the interview. Oh, Alex. Oh, you're such a prophet. You're so right about everything, Alex. I hate this thing that's floating around on the internet where it's like literally anybody who goes after the mainstream media narrative, that doesn't mean you are by definition correct. It is possible to go against the mainstream media narrative and be an even bigger dumbass and be even more wrong than mainstream media. Look, I'll give credit where it's due. Yeah, Alex Jones was saying the Patriot Act's going to happen and it's bad. Great, got that one right. I agree. Early on in his career, he was railing against the Iraq War. Wonderful, I'm with you on that, Alex. Even if I go as far as to say 23% of the time, he has a point. Okay, 23% of the time, I tip my hat to you. What about the other percentage? What about that? Don't want to talk about that. And it didn't come up at all. So, for example, all I did was go on YouTube and type in Secular Talk Alex Jones and just read through some of the headlines to see the things he said over the years. Here's some. Liberal lesbians want to, quote, eat your brain and torture you. He said Sam Harris eats babies. He said elites marry horses. He said Morning Joe hosts are possessed by spirits from other dimensions. He said RBG died, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, in a blood sacrifice. He said 90% of Democrats want to execute gun owners. He says everyone on TV pledges loyalty to Lucifer. Vaccine proponents are going to stand trial at Nuremberg. Michelle Obama is not only trans, but also she killed Joan Rivers, of course. Anthony Bourdain was assassinated by globalists because he loved Trump so much. 5 years ago, he said Democrats are launching a civil war on July 4th. Seems like a pretty bold prediction. That didn't come true, and then nobody holds it against him after the fact. He says left-wing college kids are all Satanists. And, of course, his classic, like I already brought up, anytime there's a mass shooting, he's out there the same day saying, oh, it's false flag. Never comes back and fact checks it. Never comes back, hey, I was wrong on that one. Hey, I didn't get this exactly right. So for the love of God, stop sucking off a charlatan and a con man. It's embarrassing. But in the case of Tucker, we know why he's doing it. He's grifting. He wants that Alex Jones audience. He wants them to come to him. He wants that Trump audience. It's the same reason he sucks Trump off, but behind the scenes, it's, I hate this guy with a burning passion. Nothing positive came out of the Trump years, et cetera, et cetera. So are my words. These are his words. You go look it up. We cover the story. And by the way, that's exactly why Fox News settled with the voting company. Which one was that? Dominion or Smartmatic? It was one of those. I think it was Dominion. That's why they settled. Because they were like, oh my God, if more of this stuff comes out in Discovery, all of our hosts are going to be outed as total frauds who believe nothing. Well, this is another example for the world. But go ahead. Everybody keep pretending like this guy's some sort of prophet who's who's right about everything, even though he's wrong on over 80% of things and in a hilariously stupid way. Hey y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.